Welcome to another episode of Learning Maya, Intro to Materials. When I create a polygon primitive, it'll initially have a default gray shader applied to it. With my object selected, if I right-click and hold in my viewport, I will get a menu where I can select Assign New Material. Please take note that we have a few options here. The ones we will be looking at today are Blinn, Lambert, Phong, and Phong-E. I'm going to start with the most basic material, a Lambert. Notice that in our attribute editor we have a number of different attributes for this material. The most basic of these attributes, of course, is going to be color. And if I click on the color swatch next to the word color, I will get a pop-up that will allow me to change the color of my material. I'll pick the red color swatch. While not necessary, I recommend renaming the materials that you create. This will be especially useful as your Maya scenes get more and more complicated. I'm going to move the sphere off to the side and create a second sphere. And once again, I'll right-click in my viewport and select Assign New Material. But this time, instead of creating a Lambert, I'm going to choose a Blinn. I will rename my Blinn, and I will make this Blinn material the very same red as my Lambert material. Notice how the two different materials contrast with one another. The Lambert material lacks a specular highlight. The Blinn has a specular highlight. Once again, I'm going to select the spheres, move them over to the side, create a new sphere, and make yet another material. Right-clicking in my viewport, I'll go to Assign New Material, and this time I will select Phong. I'll rename my material, and I will make this one red. Notice that similar to the Blinn material, the Phong also has a specular highlight. Notice that I can scrub the transparency property to make this material more transparent. The Phong also has various properties that will allow me to adjust the highlight on my material. Let's adjust the color of this Phong material. I'll click on the red color swatch, and notice that on the color wheel I can select a different color within the color spectrum. I can also adjust the saturation level as well as its value. I can also adjust the color or hue here, as well as the saturation and the value. With these three properties, hue, saturation, and value, you can mix any color or create any color that you desire. Since I've changed the color of my material, I'm going to go ahead and change its name as well. I will call it purple_Phong. I'm going to select the middle sphere, and this time I'll right-click, but instead of assigning a new material, I will assign an existing material. I will assign the purple Phong material that I just created. Multiple objects in your scene can share the same material. It's very easy to switch between the different materials. Among these three objects, can you tell which one is using a Lambert shader? The red sphere in the middle has no highlight, no specularity. That is the one that is using the Lambert. I'm going to now delete two of the spheres and create some different polygon primitives. I will create a cube and a cone. And then I will also apply the same purple material to these two new polygon primitives. My reason for doing this is that I want to see this material applied to other polygon primitives. Check out the specular highlight on the cube. With its hard edges, the specular highlight is captured a little differently. I'm going to now select my cube. And with the cube selected, I'm going to go to the Attribute Editor. Notice that in the Attribute Editor there are 4 different tabs right now, one being the material that's applied to my object. And if I change the hue for that material, it actually changes on all the objects that are sharing this material. And if I change the other properties, such as transparency, on my material, it will also update on all of the objects sharing this material. Notice how even when the object is perfectly transparent, it still catches highlights. It still has that specular quality. There's actually another place in Maya where we can also work with our materials. And to navigate there, simply go to Windows, Rendering Editors, Hypershade. In the Hypershade, we can see all the materials that we've created up to this point. So that we can see these materials a little bit better, I'm going to go to View, and I'm going to enable large swatches. In the Hypershade, I can select each of my materials by clicking on them. And you can see what your materials will look like on the right side on the shader ball. And you can conveniently apply your materials by middle mouse dragging them onto your objects, which is what I'm doing now. You can also create new materials in the Hypershade itself. Notice that we have a lot of different options on the left side of our UI here. For the time being, we really want to focus on just the Blinn, Lambert, and 2 Fongs. I'm going to create a new Fong. Notice that with my new Fong material selected, I can go to the Attribute Editor and change its properties. I will make this one green. And I will give my material a unique name. I will adjust the cosine property for my material, which will affect the specular highlight on it. And now I'll middle mouse drag the material onto the sphere to the right. I'm going to close my Hypershade because I want to show you yet another way that you can open it. And you will find it here. There's an icon that looks like a blue sphere, which is the Display Hypershade window button. Clicking it opens up the Hypershade. And finally, I'll show you one more way that you can create materials, and that is on your shelf under the Rendering tab, where you will find some icons for these different material types. With an object selected, clicking on the icon will apply a new material to that object. As you can tell, there are a lot of different ways to create materials as well as apply them to your objects. As you get more and more familiar with these different techniques, you'll find the one that works best for you. My personal preference is to work in the Hypershade itself. My recommendation for learning how to create and apply materials is to make lots of different polygon primitives and lots of different materials using the techniques demonstrated in this video. I hope you've learned something from this video and that you have enjoyed it, and thank you for watching.